occasionally, we're privileged to examine the craft of one of the acknowledged leaders of a generation. Tonight, as we reach the midway point of our 12th year, is such a night. Our guest has made us look at ourselves and laugh at ourselves in an array of films from Robin Hood Men in Tights to Getting In, The Nutty Professor, Con Air, Half-Baked, You've Got Mail, Blue Streak, and Undercover Brother. In television, he has brought his unique, hilarious perspective to Def Comedy Jam, Comic Relief, frequent guest appearances wherever comedy counts, and in his live concert performances, Killing Them Softly, For What It's Worth, and Dave Chappelle's Block Party. The groundbreaking show that bears his name has been honored with Emmy and Image Award nominations and broken every record for DVD sales of a television show. The Actors Studio is very proud to welcome Dave Chappelle.
Everybody's waiting to see how crazy I am. That's it. Huh? That's good.
For 11 and a half years, my job on this stage has been to trace for our students the journey that has resulted in the artist in that chair at this moment. It begins always logically at the beginning.
I'm sorry for
What you didn't know is that I'm really funny. He appreciates me. Sometimes you don't. He does. Oh. Where were you born, Dave?
Washington, D.C.
What's your father's name?
William David Chappelle.
And your mother's?
Yvonne Reed Chappelle.
What were they doing in Washington when you were born? How did you happen to be there?
I have no idea. I know sex was involved. And then somehow, no, I'm just kidding. What were my, you know, it's funny. My mom and my dad are very educated people. My dad was doing some corporate. I think he was doing statistics.
In the course of this series, we've constructed an honor roll of impressive mothers. My research has indicated to me that your mother belongs in that number.
She's gonna love this.
But I think she deserves that.
I do too.
What's her educational background?
She's got a master's in divinity, a PhD in African American studies, and something else about some sociology. She's got a stack of degrees in the house somewhere.
Didn't she have a career in the Congo when Patrice Lumumba?
Yes, she worked for Lumumba. He hired her himself, and she worked there during the Civil War. She was there when he was assassinated.
What did your mother do when she returned to the United States?
She opened the Belinda Center at the Central State University.
This was in Ohio?
Yeah, in Ohio.
My research indicates that she established what may have been the first PhD program in black studies in 1974.
Yeah.
She was a pioneer.
Yeah, she was, and in a lot of ways, I think she still is.
You may know or may not know, she taught Lingala.
That I didn't know.
It's a Congo language. She taught it at Central State University. Did she share any of her linguistic gifts with you?
I barely speak English.
Your father also had an academic career.
Yes.
Where did he teach?
Antioch College. It's in Yellow Springs, Ohio. It's a real, like, hippie town.
It's a hippie college.
It's the hippie college.
Yes, it is.
Antioch, if you'll remember, is the school that had the sex policy. Ask every step of the way. May I kiss your breast?
Did you have any siblings?
I have two. I have a brother and a sister.
Where'd you go to elementary school?
Woodland Elementary, Silver Spring, Maryland.
With an academic environment at home, How did you do in elementary school?
Very poorly.
Why?
I never liked school from the first day. I just walked in there and said, I hate this place. I hate its guts. I hated school. And I know it's not good to say to students, but the way my mom introduced me to school was kind of traumatic, because she didn't tell me I was going. She's packing a lunchbox and all this stuff was happening, and I thought we was going for a walk. And then we walked into school, and she was like, I'm bouncing. I was just in there. And I cried, man, I cried. And these kids were just so mean and evil. I don't know if people remember their first day of kindergarten, but it was like, I felt like all these kids had met each other before, and I was the only one that didn't know anybody. And I got in a fight. This kid, I still remember his name, Paul. We were coloring it. He was coloring corn green. That really bugged me. And I told him that corn was yellow, and he started hitting me, and I was like, this is the coldest shit that's ever happened to me in my life. It was just like instantly life had changed.
So color was already an issue.
Color was an issue. You guys heard this?
Did television play a role in your life when you were a kid?
I watched an incredible amount of television. Before I could tell time from a clock, I would tell it from a television. That I could turn on the TV and say, oh, this is on, it's 7:30. I watched so much TV, man. I was always like a escapist.
Yeah.
You know, I was the odd kid out. Like, I didn't tell you this about my first day in kindergarten. I peed in the nap time. I peed, which instantly set me apart from everybody. Like, you can't do that. Right. But we were having juice. It got so good to me, and then I wasn't. And my older brother was like freakishly good-looking dude, you know. Me, I mean, I'm all right. But, you know, everyone in my family was light-complected, except for me. And I'm telling you, from a young age, I noticed people were treating me different. But I didn't understand why they were treating me different.
Yeah.
And I do believe to this day that that had something to do with it. Excuse me.
One of the things you're not allowed to do on this show is to fake tears.
All right, I'm sorry.
This is inside the actor's studio. We don't fake tears here. It's still fake. What middle school did you go to, Dave?
Arthur E. Morgan Middle School, which no longer exists. And that's in Yellow Springs. It was, I guess, right after my last year in elementary school, my mom moved us, like before we lived right on the outskirts of Washington on the dividing line.
Yeah.
Then Mom moved us in the Northwest. We moved to D.C., man, and it was like the neighborhood was wild, and I was just at that age where I would want to start running the streets, right, so to speak. So my mom sent my brother and I to live with my father in Yellow Springs.
I see.
4,500 people. Maybe now there's like 3,700 people in that town. So.
And all of them slightly different from the rest of the United States.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's a hippie town. My dad at the time was involved in some like human rights group that was dedicated to ending racism. But it's a small town, so racism is a relative term. Hating black people would mean I hate like 25 people in this town. You know what I mean?
How old were you when your parents separated?
My parents split up when I was 2, and I don't remember them married.
What high school did you attend in Washington?
Duke Ellington School of the Arts. Well, first I went to Eastern High School for half of a school year. I transferred to Duke Ellington. See, this is the thing. When I came back from Ohio, like I left when I was like 10, almost 11. I came back when I was 13, going on 14. While I was gone, crack had come out. So I got like a before and after. It was like a crack bomb had gone off. Like D.C. during the crack epidemic was probably one of the worst cities in America. Definitely was the murder capital. My freshman year of high school, 560 kids my age murdered. It's heavy, man, you know. Everybody I knew sold cracks. Only God knows how many people were smoking crack. And that made a real big impression on me. That and the fact that D.C. is a very segregated city, especially at that time. Statistically speaking, to this day, statistically speaking, there's not one poor white person in Washington. There's a lot of poor black people in Washington. So these are the things that I'm seeing, and I didn't like that shit, man. I didn't like going to Eastern. So I was going through a real tough time, man, like just readjusting. And my mom bought me this Time magazine with Bill Cosby on the cover, Cosby Inc. Me and the guy had a lot of stuff in common, like some of the quotes he would say. And I just remember, like after reading that stuff, I put it down, and it was like, I'm gonna be a comedian. And man, I'm telling you, I could see it so clearly. So clearly, man. This is it. I was so excited, I told my family, I have an announcement to make, I'm gonna be a comedian. You know, it was like real. Because I was always funny. I'm the youngest kid, you know. The youngest kid in the family usually plays that role of the tension breaker.
Right.
I was that dude. And that's when my mom suggested that maybe I go to a comedy club and check it out. Live comedy is the most incredible thing in the world to me. Like the first time you see a dude just standing there talking, and every joke he's saying just hitting, it was working. Every weekend I would go, I'd get a little money, and to the point they started knowing me, I'd just sit in the crowd and I'd just be watching. And then on Tuesdays they had an open mic, and I'd go on Tuesday to see why people weren't working. Weekends were to see why people were working. Tuesday I was figuring out what's wrong with these people. To watch a comedian bomb is one of the greatest things in the world. I love it. And then at that point, I was talking to a comedian after one of the shows, and the owner of the comedy club, and they were both saying, you know, if you want to be a good comedian, you got to take acting classes. And they didn't explain it. But after that, I went home and I said, Mom, I got to take acting classes.